But before that, there's a question. Um, which one is better, to send the solution incomplete before time expire, or send the complete solution minutes after time expire in terms of the grade? Okay, normally there's two ways that I can do. One is, of course, this not only, of course, this become more complicated when we are online. Normally in class, because I collect the quiz papers when the time ends, right? So you have physical options there. Um, and also normally in the beginning of the class, I ask, at the beginning of the semester, I ask the student which one they prefer, whether I simply do not accept any late submission or deduction of marks. Of course, most students do not want me to simply not accept any late submission. But if late submission is still accepted, normally my purpose is doing that is so that for anyone who still want to know what is their mistake in the solution. But to be fair, because essentially I have to be try to be fair to those who submit on time, and those who submit late should not have any advantages. So the way I mark let submission, the normal way is for whenever it's late, then there's automatically -3 deduction, and then every 30 seconds after that -3, because that is the amount of mark that you can get every 30 seconds, normally speaking, in the quiz. So if you late 2 minutes, then it's minus 12, something like that, right? If you late 3, 4, 5 minutes, already -20 already, right? Yeah, so uh, based on that, you can decide yourself whether it's worth uh, to finish and submit late, or in terms of the mark, is not worth it, right? So hopefully that clears that things up, right? But for quiz number 1 and number 2, uh, there are some of you that may notice that the late submission is still not heavily penalized yet, meaning that for every minute I only sub -1 or 2 or something like that. Right? But normally for every minute it will be -6, something like that. All right. So that is in terms of the quiz marks for late submission. Um, because otherwise it will not be fair to those who submit on time, right? Because then you still have more chance to. So the logic is this, meaning that if you spend the time to answer and you get it correctly, the mark still is similar than if you submit without finishing. However, it will be worse because if you use the time but your answer is wrong, it will be worse off, right? So yeah. Anyway, so I will go on to the uh, previous quiz for anyone who needs this, but I think there's a significant number who get everything correct, I think, but I haven't finished yet marking quiz number. Well, this is quiz number 3, so I haven't start marking yet. I'm still, so that's another challenge, I think, in terms of marking a lot of students. I'm still at quiz number 2, trying to mark quiz number 2. Okay, so for anyone who needs this, I'll just go briefly in terms of the way we solve question like this, right? So okay, so in this question, basically we have a diagram here where uh, this is 2D problem for equilibrium of a particle. Obviously now you know it's equilibrium of a particle because we are still in this chapter, but later on when we have covered equilibrium of different type of structure, we have to know, oh, okay, this is particle, this is also a particle. So the question in this particular question says, if the cable BC develop tension of 0.25 kilonewton, determine the tension developed in each of the cable as well as the width of the bucket. So first and foremost, you have to understand what is given. So what is given is this one. So meaning that, what is this? Okay, so meaning that in BC, you have this one, right? So meaning that this tension here is basically 0.25 kilonewton. Right. In question like this, from the beginning, you should be able to understand from the get-go, right? You have basically this point and this point. You have to draw the free body diagram. And the way we tend to do it, if you want to, this is not right or wrong. It's more of being strategic and to be able to solve straight away, rather than, for example, if I draw this free body diagram here first, right? I have a force here, and force here. But all of each of these three is unknown, right? So I cannot solve yet. So I still have to go to point B first, right? So might as well from the beginning you just go to point B. So when you draw a free body diagram of point B, so you have force there, and force there. So you have this one is already known in terms of the value, 0.25 kilonewton. This one will be FED. If I want to label it, if this is FPE, right? And then you have to have also the angle to get all the marks for the free body diagram. So the angle as well, right? And as well, of course, the full complete is the axis as well, right? But generally speaking, I think for something that is quite obvious, the axis is like it is forgiven if you do not draw, right? Yeah. But in other case, we will notice this later on in other chapter where the x and y is because normally we have x and y here, right? But later on we can see certain problem that we want x and y here is easier to calculate. So if you have something like this, you have to draw so that it is clear. But in otherwise, like what we are drawing here, it is basically still accepted despite not having the axis. Now, then we do summation of forces to get the unknown. So the easier way here is if you start with summation of Fy equal to 0. From there, you have this component 0.25 sine 30, and then you have also this component FBE 4/5, right? From there, you can actually solve for FBE, and then you do summation of Fx equal to 0, then you can solve for FEB. So having solved these things, you can go to the next free body diagram here of E. So if you draw that, we have this one, let's say the weight, this one FDE say, and this one which is FBE. But of course, if you do this first, this one already have the value. You have to put the value because it is already known. And then this is 3, 4, 5, and then this is 30 degrees. So from here, because FPE is already known, so you can do summation of Fx equal to 0, then you can solve for FPE, and then you can do summation of Fy equal to 0, you can solve for W. So in the end, you have all the unknown solved, right? So I'm just showing the steps, the main steps, because I assume you already know how to calculate the actual numbers, right? So that is how we solve this kind of question. It should be quite straightforward, inshallah. Right. So with that, if you have any further question, feel free to ask. Otherwise, also if any other question with regard to today's topic, feel free to ask as well. Otherwise, thank you very much. Feel free to, if you haven't completed the tutorial, feel free to complete it. If you have any question, feel free to ask. If you do not have anything else, also feel free to just finish the tutorial as well.